Hey everybody, it is Mark Schultz and we are live also now on our webinar series and our webinar on LinkedIn. You signed up to join in on our Going Digital webinar today, and we're doing a simulcast. We're actually broadcasting today on our webinar, on our LinkedIn page, and also in YouTube and Twitter and a few other places. So we're going to get going here. We're going to be talking about going digital and what are the foundations for success in going digital within aviation aerospace. So welcome. We're really glad to have you here today, and let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Let me just start out by sharing a screen here for those of you watching that we can get us kicked off here. There we go. All right, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, and we're going to be talking about going digital, digital transformation, content management, interactive electronic technical publications, task cards, XML, SGML, and I got some experts here with us today, and I'm looking forward to introducing them to you. Welcome, Thanos. How are you today, sir?
Fine, thank you.
Very good to have you on the webinar. And Baron, welcome, Baron.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to be here.
Yep,
pleasant
excellent.
to be here. Yeah,
very good. Hey, Thanos, let me start with you. Could you tell us, just so that people know who you are and a little bit about your background out there, those that are watching today, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, the brief bio there says I'm an IT professional since 1978. So that's a dead giveaway as to how old I am. But essentially in January 1992, I went into a project for an OEM in Montreal, Canadair, which I thought was going to be for 2 weeks. I came in as an IT expert. I never left aviation since then. After working for 4.5 years in dealing with a major document authoring and publishing system at Bombardier. Then I set up Aerosoft in 1997, and we are on our 24th year. And the focus of Aerosoft is MRO and CMS software for commercial aviation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thanos, the reason that Thanos and Baron are here is because of your deep expertise in this area. And so we're really hoping that the knowledge that can be shared on this webinar will help you to be able to, figure out where you're going in your digital projects and how to accelerate them and to have the best possible digital environment for your aviation aerospace business. So that's why Thanos and I have actually been doing broadcasts on Tuesday here at the same time for the whole month of March right now. Hey, Baron, welcome. Can you tell us who you are and what you do at Aerosoft?
Okay, Mark. I'm Vice President Product Management for our product suite of MRO systems and our content management system, which we want to discuss here. Joined the company around 2001 after starting my aviation career in Austria at a regional airline, starting up maintenance planning and control. I started with the paper world, and I ended there with all the different digital products that were out there. So I worked in Austria for about 25 years and joined Aerosoft a couple of years ago here in Canada.
Yeah, and Baron, you have actual hands-on maintenance experience, and then you transitioned over to providing solutions for the maintenance environments, right?
That's correct. Basically, I know what people are facing during the maintenance, during the preparation, the work planning, and also basically what solutions are available out there and how those solutions can actually really support and help people in the field, but also people in the back office who are preparing all this information.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, listen, so what we have today is we have a panel of the three of us that have a deep history in aviation aerospace and a transition and an involvement for many, many years in digital and implementing digital solutions within aviation aerospace. What's our goal? Why are we doing this? We are really focused on trying to help people like you, those of you that are watching, to be able to be successful in moving forward with your own digital solutions. And so what we're talking about today is we're going to talk about some of the foundations for digital solutions and digital transformation. And if you're asking yourself, where do I start? What do I do? Many of us are doing that. And one of the challenges that we have is that as an organization is that we all have existing IT portfolios. And I'm trying to get my slide to change. There we go. we all have to look at what we're doing and what our needs and requirements are. And Aerosoft has been doing that for many years now. For over 20 years now, Aerosoft has been a company that has been focusing on the delivery of digital solutions in the area of MRO systems and content management systems and other supporting environments around that. Currently, Aerosoft is based in Toronto and has offices in Miami, Seattle, and in the European region, has customers worldwide. It's a private corporation which is headquartered out of Toronto, Canada, and it has loyal customers that have been customers for over 20 years. And so that's really the foundation in which some of these discussions are coming from. The three people and our experiences and working with companies all around the world for many years. I've worked with over 250 aviation aerospace companies and implementing solutions. And between Thanos and Baron and I, we've worked with hundreds of companies doing that. So that's where our basis of experience really is coming from today. So where I want to go is that next, I want to say that you're sitting there and thinking to yourself is that, where do I go? What do I do next? I have an IT portfolio. And many times we have to ask ourselves is that what's the place to start? Thanos, you and I have had discussions about this in the past about how to determine what's going to give you the best return on investment. Can you just briefly tell us is that if you're looking at a maintenance organization and you're saying, where do I start? I mean, do you have any quick advice for people that can say, where do I start?
Well, historically, the paradigm or the jargon was let's go paperless. And of course, that was the initial step that needed to be accomplished. But you need a lot more than going paperless to be able to get the full ROI of these applications. And the reason I know that is that the manufacturers started migrating away from the paper-based standards to at least media-based delivery and then network-based delivery of their content, their technical manuals, according to international standards like ISPEC 2200 and S1000D. But that is the beginning step. That is the way you interchange the data between an OEM and an airline. Once you receive it at the airline, then you require essentially the electronic repository to collect this data and then to manage it, because you no longer have the hundreds of feet of shelves where you had the paper manuals and you plugged in the LOTRs. So you require the repository to manage this digital data, number one. Number two is to intelligently repurpose it across documents and across applications, and to take advantage of the database-like structure within these documents, which allows you to come up with all sorts of efficiencies all the way at the production floor.
Now, Thanos, is that every one of us has an existing IT portfolio. And so we have all these things that we want to do, and we're saying that some are going to give us bigger return on investment than others. And we're trying to decide where we start. And so we have very complex environments. And so everybody is on a different journey. Okay, everybody is, all right? Many of us are all headed to the same place. We're trying to provide this intelligent, paperless, digital environment. And the key to digital transformation, from my perspective, the way I try to communicate it to people is that it really has 4 pillars, all right? And the 4 pillars from my perspective are belief, people, process, and technology. And people might ask, well, why? What does that mean? All right. Well, number one, you have to have a belief that you're going to do this. Now, if you look all around you today in the world, you're going to see that people are moving forward with digital faster than ever before, especially with all the advancements we've had in moving into digital and communicating like this in the last year. Believing that you can do this is a critical component of it, because it's been identified that successful companies that implement digital transformation, those of which have a resolute determination to do it, are the ones that are the most successful and come out the other end with successful solutions. And number two is that I talk about people, leveraging people like Baron, for example. Baron has tremendous amount of experience in maintenance, and he comes to the table understanding what the needs are of a digital solution. Thanos, he understands the needs of digital from the perspective of having delivered solutions and worked with so many people and understanding business rules and data over many years. You can go out and figure this out all on your own. Those of you that are watching, you can figure this out. But if you have to go, 30 or 40 years and learn all these things, why? Okay. I always say that leverage the knowledge of the people around you, the people in your organization, vendors, regulators, and collectively together, we can move forward faster. We need to then look at what our processes are internally and find out what has the highest return on investment. What do we need in our business right now? What's the purposes for what we're doing? And if we implemented certain technologies, how would they impact the return on investment and the highest value processes in our organization? Technology. If you think about digital transformation, sometimes people think, oh, I need to implement new technology. No, you need to have a belief you can do this. You need to leverage the knowledge of experience of companies and people around you. You need to look at the things that are needed in your organization to deliver the highest value processes and then implement technology. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move forward and talk about some technology solutions and business problems that are addressed with that technology. So I'm going to sort of hand this to Thanos a little bit here and say, Thanos, can you tell us what maybe the 3 key business problems are that people are faced with trying to address today?
Well, every commercial operator has at least an MRO system. And somehow around it, they've also built processes to deal with content. Historically, they had paper manuals. They used to photocopy sections of them. They used to have job cards in plasticized sort of holders and deliver them to the floor. After that, they started receiving content in the simplest form possible, simplest digital form, which was PDF. And then they started figuring out how they can reuse somehow PDF, and they would have adjunct solutions where they could use things like FrameMaker and Word and cut and paste PDF and create either airline specific supplements to the manuals or their customized job cards that required a lot more content to be captured or to be delivered as part of executing the work. Not to forget, of course, that you also have engineering orders that are not necessarily around scheduled and routine tasks and so on. So we also started in building and modifying MRO systems, and we have 2 in the company. And then we moved, because the initial vision of the company was to build digital content systems. As of 2008, we've launched, and 2009, we have launched our CMS system. And I can tell you that in the first customer, we've launched it. The fundamental, it's an airline that has also MRO operations. So they offer their MRO capacity to third-party people. And in that environment, what they use it now is to essentially customize their job cards and their master engineering orders and the specific engineering orders that are relative to a different tail that belongs to another customer and so on. That's one case that we have out there. Another case is a cargo carrier in the United States that, again, has received aircraft that were originally built for passengers, and then they've been STC'd extensively to become cargo aircraft, and they need to maintain the OEM revision that still gets issued relative to the initial aircraft that were purchased, let's say, by Delta, and that's the Boeing content, but they need to keep reapplying the STCs that have been put to those aircraft through their life. And they need to do that in their AMMs and FIMs and AIPCs, but in particular to their job cards. And in this customer, we also have our MRO system, and we have a tightly coupled integration between work packages and work orders and the content that is managed on the content management system. And in our premier case, we have one of the largest North American regionals, and they are moving their entire content system from an OEM proprietary environment that's PDF based to a combined SGML, XML environment that allows also maintaining their investments in PDF on a transitional basis until they can reauthor them as necessary with COCs, and also customize their job cards relative to the very specific and advanced grammar they have in their job cards, and deliver them efficiently on browsers or on mobile devices to the production floor. So
now I understand Barron has worked on all 3 of these projects, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think the best thing to do is to get Baron to launch into a demonstration of some key features that we are able to provide through our Digidoc
Okay,
CMS system.
so where are we going to start? You ended up by telling us about your customer Endeavor and how you're providing content management for them.
Yeah, they have a substantial history. So in addition to having our MRO system, they also acquired our content management system, but they have already very large investments in the way they have authored supplements and amendments and RIIs. They in an external system, which then they dovetail with the revisions that they receive from the OEM. So any solution that moved them to XML SGML had to recognize this content as is where is, not on the basis of, oh, well, somehow magically we're going to convert all it to XML off the bat. So the solution we're going to show you will demonstrate the dovetailing of SGML revisions with existing PDF content, then the revision process where additional TRs are introduced by the OEM in PDF or in SGML, and they're compared with the previous published content and delivered to the production floor to the mechanics.
Okay, so we're going to see a little bit about manuals and the end product, a little bit about revision processing, task cards, and some of those integrated things. Baron, why don't we just turn it over to you and have you start showing us some of these things? I'll stop sharing here right now, and we'll give it to you.
Sure, Mark. So this is the basically this is the end product that mechanics, engine, and aircraft engineers will be using. In this case, they will have a selection of 3 different what we call ITPs. Interactive Electronic Technical Publications by the 3 fleets. Each will have their own set of documents applicable to them. So if I, in this case, I'll start with the 900 here. If I call the 900, first of all, it will allow the user to make a selection. If he already knows he's going to work on a particular aircraft, then he can pick that particular aircraft from the list of serial numbers or the list of tail numbers from that aircraft. For the moment, I'm going to stick with all because I want to show you how that helps with the effectivity resolution that we have within the system. So in this case, the CRJ 900 suite that I'm showing you here has a collection of, in this case, only the SGML manuals. I'll show you another collection shortly, which will have a combination of both SGML, XML manuals, and PDF manuals. This particular OEM is currently not providing all manuals in SGML format, so we have to basically stick to the existing PDF manuals that are currently not already provided. So this brings us up with a list of the different manuals that we have with drop-down lists of the different 88 chapter sections, subjects, and then of course we provide links to go directly into the information. This is just a quick sample of the AIPC, but it already shows us instantly an integration that we've made with what is called supplemental data. So information with the green banners indicate that there is an additional piece of information that the engineer should be using, and that's what we call the supplementary data. And on top, we have a drop-down list from which he can then view actually that information. Now this is
Baron, just a quick question.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's a merging together of the OEM data and then the customer specific or the operator specific data that's been put together, right?
Yes, correctly.
Okay.
In the current OEM environment, editing PDFs and changing them to contain your COC content, it's a bit cumbersome. So what they've done is they created these additional sets of information, and we're providing a functionality where we can basically merge them into the existing into the SGML content. So another feature of this application is, of course, the search. And in this case, I'll make a quick introduction here. I'm going to search for storage, and it instantly gives me all the manuals and all the documents that are including that particular piece of information that we're looking for. And if I select one of the documents to take a look at, in this case, a temporary revision. So we allow you to introduce them as well, and I'll show you later on how that's done. It highlights whatever we were searching for, storage, in the document. And if there are some internal references to other pieces of information, then it can be provided. At the moment in this set, as you can see, we have some effectivity filtering set up. So the document indicates that there is a particular task card which applies basically only for aircraft within the 10,000 series, where another task card, which basically looks the same, both have the same title, mooring and mooring, applies to a different set of aircraft. I said that we were using a particular aircraft, or we're using all aircraft. So if I make a selection here on top to pick one of the 1,500 aircraft, which is applicable to this fleet, basically we are re-rendering the information. And now you will notice that instead of 3 mooring tasks, we only have 1 left over, which is the one actual for this particular aircraft that we selected.
Now, Baron, just a quick question. Is it when you get the manufacturer's data directly from the manufacturer, do you have that same kind of effectivity control?
Yes, we do.
Well,
Okay.
let me jump in there. Effectivity statements are embedded in the SGML. Okay, so if you were to render the entire content in PDF, you cannot do what we just demonstrated. We interpret the range of effectivity, and then we hide and show the relevant tasks accordingly, because this is real-time conversion of XML data to HTML, if you want to get down to the bottom of it.
Okay, well, that's what I was asking, because I thought that the source data wasn't quite as easy to resolve the aircraft you're working on as what it is.
Some
right
manufacturers
here, right?
publish a manual for the entire tail range. Some manufacturers will send you the information that is across only for the aircraft that you have at least purchased from them. However, even within that range, you could have effectivity breaks that would still need to be resolved depending on which aircraft is coming into the hangar.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
So another feature that we have here is that we can advise the user what are the latest changes. They can basically identify the changes in the particular document. Now, if content was deleted, we'll mark it with a special icon. And if content was changed, it will be highlighted with a magenta background color. Now, this is all customized. If there's people out there who want to see a different color or want to use a different type of notification, then that can all be provided for. Then, of course, we also provide a functionality to print this information directly filtered. It will collect the information and initially trigger the printer settings there. So the user, the aircraft engineer, mechanic, can directly print whatever documents he wants to print for his references to perform certain steps.
Aaron, I don't know what that word is. What's that word you used with a P? I don't know what that
Print.
is.
Print. Yeah, it's unfortunately in some parts of the world, prints are still needed. The dirty fingerprint is still a requirement.
I'm hoping to move to the paperless word, the P word, not the print P word. Yeah, right.
Okay. Let me also show you basically where we can keep customer originated changes in this set of manuals. So in this case, I've allocated one within chapter 49.
Yeah, we switched manuals, went to the AMM.
Hold on, sorry, that was the wrong one. Where are we? I wrote it down earlier, but I cannot find it. That's the trick of doing a live demo, right? No, okay. I'll have another trick here. We have what
But basically, you're incorporating customer originated changes into the document, is what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
So he's navigated through the front matter now, right?
That's right. I'm now taking a look at all the different changes that were identified by the system. So all these items where we say it's where the reason for change is revised, that's because we've detected that it was revised. It doesn't mean that the OEM indicated in its data set that that was actually a revision, but we have identified it by comparing the XML data from a revision to revision and found that indeed there was a revised content in this one. There was a task that was deleted by the information, or like in this case, this is a net new task that was introduced into the AMM.
So content management systems have to have this capability. You can't just go by the tags that the OEM has issued to ensure 100% integrity relative to change between revision to revision. And we find still on all manufacturers substantial amount of differences which have not been flagged correctly from revision to revision by the OEM. Don't be surprised.
So I found here this COC. It contains information from who made the actual change within the application, within the database. And if I now call this one, you can actually see that in a different color, it identifies that the use task card number is the actual change to the document. And if I ask for the highlights, you can see that the original OEM content that was in there was completely removed, as they wanted all their engineers to follow their customized job card in that respect. So I told you that the system can have a hybrid system of HTML data and PDF data. So in the 700 set, we have that situation. You can see we have a lot more information here. So we have, again, our HTML/XML manuals, the AMM, etc. But we know that, for instance, the CMM is a PDF document by which the OEM has no intention to actually provide their customers with an HTML version. So in that case, we still need to provide that functionality where the engineers can reuse that information, and in this case, in a PDF version of that document.
So Baron, that really is an important aspect of managing data, because when you have a mixed fleet that has an age that goes over many years, the data is different from fleet to fleet to fleet, and is different formats over the years. And so this feature you have of being able to bring in PDF documents in with structured data and present that to the user as a combined document or combined content, that's pretty important. So that's what you're doing. That's what you're showing me right now, right?
Yeah, that's correct. You want to have one solution for your engineers. They want to have one landing page from which they can go to any manual for that particular aircraft fleet to maintain the aircraft. A lot of times you will see that if operators are having a mixed fleet, then they would have to use the different proprietary solutions from the different OEMs to read the information, and that of course makes it a lot more harder for the engineers to work with, because they have to switch their mindset between using the application from OEM provider number A and then with another OEM provider.
So it's not also a case of just old aircraft types that would have PDF content. You will get contemporary aircraft types for which only PDF content is available. And I can go beyond that. If you know, the 787, for example, was issued as an S1000D aircraft. Well, not all its manuals are indeed in S1000D. It still has manuals that are in iSpec 2200 and some in PDF. And the CMMs, you don't really have a control to receive them all in XML because, you know, there's 15 to 20,000 component manufacturers out there, and most of them still author in their in-house environments and issue the CMMs in PDF. So you do need a single environment where all aircraft types and a range of standards-based information can be handled.
So I guess you're going to show us how all this is assembled and put together, right?
Yes. So this is what we're showing you so far is basically the output, the end product that engineering mechanics will be using. We do have the authoring, what we call the authoring environment. This is where all the pieces of information, all the data comes together. Here is where we basically have information regarding the individual manual and its applicable revision. And we have provided a very efficient and very user-friendly data loading process where the publisher or the people who are maintaining the system at this end can indicate which particular set of information they want to upload. So what I've prepared here is an upload of TRs for the 900 AIPC manual, and it's pretty straightforward. You pick, instead of basically locating and uploading information of the individual TRs, in this case, we'll only have to pick the zip file, open it.
And I think people need to understand that revisions, while you're doing that, Baron, revisions, major revisions can come every 90 days, but the manufacturer, the OEM, can issue minor revisions every 30 days. They send the manual set in, not in its entirety. They may send 5 manuals, let's say in January, and another 8 manuals in April, and so on. And the application needs to have these capabilities of loading very large volumes on a repetitive basis and maintaining 100% integrity.
And in the meantime, that what happened in the background. We have loaded now a total of 15 TR, basically not TR documents by per se, but TR revisions. And all the new content is identified clearly that it has not been processed yet. We allow people to take a quick look to see what that particular content looks like. And we get the information and provide it to it. Now what you see is we have capabilities to zoom in and zoom out of these images so people can take a real detailed look. And we can reset the information as necessary. I've prepared basically what we call the next step in this process is, okay, so you have your initial OEM revision, you have loaded your next revision or a lot of TRs against that revision, that initial one, and now you're getting your subsequent OEM revision. So you want to be quickly able to identify what was changed between the different versions. In this case, I've prepared a set within the AMM. And if I click on TRs, it will now filter out the TRs. And if I scroll down a bit, it's easier to understand. So we had this initial task in there, removal of a diode with a subsequent temporary revision. And now in this next release, the OEM provided a new version of that initial OEM task. So we can, instead of basically putting them together and comparing them on screen with the individual versions, we have what we call a multi-revision application, where we can pick the different versions. I'm going to select the new revision on my left-hand side, I want to take a look at the TR in the center and what is currently the current OEM revision on the right. And by doing a compare and view, the system will now really start to review and identify the different changes. So it's on the left-hand side, we got what is called the new OEM version. In the middle, we got the current TR version. And on the right-hand side, we got the current OEM version. And just by
Darren,
clicking
I don't
on
think we're seeing the
screen hasn't refreshed.
must have a
Okay.
different screen being shared or something there. So
sorry about that.
Yep.
There we go.
There we go. Sorry, it's it didn't pick it up.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah.
So yeah, indicated on the left-hand side, we have our next OEM revision. And on the middle, we have the current TR. And on the right-hand side, we have our current OEM. So we already identified that the TR has some additional information as to the reason why that particular TR was issued. And if we use the next button, it will constantly jump forward and identify what is actually changed. So you can see and compare instantly that on the new OEM revision and the TR, they've introduced in a change for carefully remove instead of just remove the spacer. And apparently they decided to remove the discard of the thermal pads requirement.
So Baron, let me just make sure I know what I'm looking at. So I have an original, or I have the current manufacturer's revision. I've issued or incorporated or released a temporary revision, and then now a new revision has come out. And what we're doing is we're reconciling those three against each other.
Yeah, well, we are checking to see if this particular TR is now fulfilled by the new OEM revision.
Okay.
And if it's not,
yeah, the tool itself actually is even more advanced. You can actually reconcile 4 if you wanted to. And typically on the right-hand side, you have the last airline published content, which would be the last reconciled version, including the airline-specific customer-originated changes implemented in it. And then you apply this process across, and you decide which elements from which column you propagate to the right-hand column to create your next official published version of that minimum revisable unit. It could be a task, it could be a page block, it could be an IPC figure, and so on.
Now, is this comparing tags or content?
It's comparing absolutely 100% tags and content and structure.
Okay.
If there is a period missing, it'll find it. If there is a tag that's been renamed, it'll find it. It'll even find if metadata has been changed, which is a different level problem.
Baron, you probably have seen this yourself, being out there in the field, but, I've implemented a lot of systems at a lot of different, MROs and airlines. And I have seen where content has been released, which broke down because the structure wasn't right or the tags were wrong. And it only could have been caught by comparing the content. So I think that's really important that you're actually comparing all three in order to make sure that there's nothing being missed.
Yeah, if there are other systems out there that are basically relying on the revision information provided by the OEM, either by separate pages in which they indicated what was revised, or by the OEM revision tags within the HTML data. We're not depending on those. We are making really a one-on-one comparison between the data itself, and therefore we can bypass any OEM information that's either missing and really introduce and flag that as an actual change.
And we also highlight with different colors OEM change versus customer originated change and so on in the final published content that ends up in front of the mechanic.
So Thanos, are you finding it more common that people are customizing their content today or less common? So what I'm trying to say is that are people today more likely to use the content as it's delivered from the manufacturer or want to make changes?
Well, we gave you 3 examples why our customers have to make changes. Large airlines have very, very specific business processes, number one. So for those, they provide supplemental data. they also notice errors or whatever in the basic OEM content. And for that, they create amendments. And then they have the RII, the three-stage sign-off processes, for example, right? That's number one. And they have a wealth of information that they have kept. So on the day they switch from whatever they're using to quote XML, SGML, they are not going to give all that information up. And the scope of suggesting that we'll convert it or anyone will convert it from its original source also becomes incredibly prohibitive. So it is very important to have a process that allows you to modify the content for the airline specific information that needs to be uh, uh, approved by the regulator, the FSDO, number one, and number two, to incorporate business processes that are very unique to each airline. So they customize. Only very, very small operators have turnkey. Even the largest operators, I don't want to name anyone, that have, quote, one aircraft type only, they still have extremely customized information in the way they execute maintenance.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I've seen that, of course, I've seen that myself, is that the biggest impact is to the end user, is to the mechanic or to the consumer of the data and the content. If it has not been customized and it requires them a tremendous amount of work to be able to accomplish the tasks that they're trying to do, you know, then it makes it very difficult and very costly and time consuming for them to get the job done. So really what you're doing is that you're tailoring your operation to the needs of your operation, how you operate the airplanes, how your maintenance program, which service bulletins you incorporate, and you're making it, you know, effectivity specific, but basically you're driving this information so that it's much easier for the consumer. You know,
sometimes they'll even take photographs and show some additional steps to just clarify a process that in 2D graphics isn't as clear as possible on how to execute, right?
Got it. Okay, well, great. Well, Baron, that's really a great representation of the way that you can easily reconcile information. What's next?
Okay, what I want to emphasize is a situation that we that we face with Endeavor here as a CRJ customer, is that a lot of manuals that are provided by Mitsubishi now are basically applicable to a mixed fleet. The AMM, the CMM, the FIM, those types of manuals are common to the CRJ 700, the 900, and the 1000 series. So in order to prevent our customer and customers to load those types of manuals multiple times because they are part of these three individual fleets, we have a solution where we can set up a what we call a common fleet of 700 and 900. And use that, load the information only once and reuse it when we publish that actual information into the public the set. So if I want to publish a new set for a 700, I can actually collect all the information. So the AIPC is a 700 manual, a dedicated 700 manual, but the AMM is a common manual, and I can still pick them up to include them in one particular output. So that makes it very easy to, first of all, to save a lot of information that would be redundant and might require people to make the same change of COC information against the same content, but then in different manuals.
And if you look at the PDF level information as provided by the OEM, you will see nightmare effectivity statements because you have effectivity tagged for the 700 tails, the 900 tails, and the 1000 in terms of MSNs. And if you're only owning one of these three aircraft, you still have to understand that when you look at in front of you. However, if you have the type of tool that we've demonstrated earlier, you will only see the information that's applicable to the tails in the 700 that you actually own and operate, and so on. And also, for example, when they add changes to the effectivity for the 1000 series, they will actually hit a lot of tasks, and you need to have tools that automatically can ignore or propagate those effectivity things because they're not applicable to your fleet. So And that three-way comparison also has those capabilities of either doing line by line comparisons and propagating them, or if it's like they've added 3 more tails to the 1000 series, to automatically change all the effectivity statements accordingly. So, because you wouldn't want to change 15,000 tasks in an AMM because they've added a few more tails at the 1000 model, especially when you don't actually own any 1000s. Those are the challenges of digital data. All this wealth of information is embedded. And by the way, there's an awful lot of metadata that's also embedded that needs to be managed and maintained and so on. And we also capture metadata in the revision and authoring process. If we decide, or if the airline decides to create a COC, a customer originated change, they have the opportunity to tag why they made that change. They made the change because they found an error. They have a different authorization aspect. They're ensuring that they comply to a newer FAR and so on and so forth. So that at any point in time in the future, you can actually do searches and identify the root cause of why a particular change has been incorporated into a given revision. And all revisions are maintained for ever and a half and archived and so on and so forth. So you can go back and find why you made a change in January 2012, for example.
Good.
So we had a certain amount of time, and we only gave you 100,000 foot level demonstration of functionality to cover the entire spectrum, including, hands-on XML authoring and so on and so forth. It will take a week of demonstrations.
Absolutely.
Of course, you understand that.
No kidding. Yeah, absolutely. Baron, was there conversations that you wanted to have about what you're doing with republishing of task cards at all?
In this case, for this particular project, we're still in the process of migrating the FrameMaker documents that this customer has produced into the application, and then instead of using the OEM maintenance task card manual, we're going to use their specific output. So both their content and their output, because they decided that they want to have a drastic change of the look and feel of their job cards. Instead of a column sign off, they want to have inline sign offs. They want to have 2D barcoding. They want to have visual information of where that particular task is to be performed. So we're still in the process of doing that and accommodating those requests.
And they have a very specific grammar or structure additional to the typical MTCM content that the OEM is providing. And we've incorporated that grammar as well.
Now, at some of those other business problems that we talked about, where you said you're doing task cards and integrations at other, customers or other projects that you're doing, there's still a core content that's being repurposed or integrated and being delivered as a task card, right? So aren't you repurposing content and delivering?
Well,
it as
for
task
example,
cards?
in the first example that Baron mentioned, you've got SBs that are coming in XML, and subsets of those SBs gets repurposed into a master engineering order, and then from that you get specific engineering orders for the different operators of the different aircraft that the MROs or the business is managing. That is one aspect. Another one is in aircraft types that the manufacturer doesn't produce an MTCM per se, we actually can play the MPD with the AMM and automatically create the vanilla MTCM, on top of which then you can incorporate airline specific grammar change to the cards and how they get utilized. The integration with the MRO system is very critical, because typically MRO systems have managed just identifier level naming of cards, and then they've got external systems that produce the cards. In the integrated environments, we are able to pass the most the correct revision and the correct effectivity task or illustration across from the CMS system to the visit specific information that typically the MRO system manages. I call it the top of the task card versus the bottom, and then deliver that to whatever output device you want. Sadly, in some customers, that happens to be a paper printer, but in others, it would be an HTML screen and ultimately a mobile device, which in itself can capture information like sign-offs and or part number off and part number on and so on.
Thanos, I recently had discussion with the manager of a tech pubs organization at one of the 4 major airlines. And I asked him, I said, what is your biggest problem today? All right. And he said, not knowing the as flying configuration of the airplane. All right. And so one of the things that I've thought about is that without having intelligent data and the ability to be able to capture that information and to be able to pass it back to the MRO system and update the MRO system and update the illustrated parts catalog, you can't do that without intelligent data. And so one of the reasons that we're talking about the importance of having a structured data foundation is so that you can increase the capability and solve these really difficult problems. Like Thanos, you've previously talked to me about pre and post service bulletin configurations.
Absolutely.
Right,
absolutely.
You know,
yeah. That's a key item.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to go too deep in it, depending on the audience that we have listening.
Yeah.
But service bulletin is a classic. You have 300 tails, an SB is issued. It'll take you 90 days to push that SB through the entire fleet, right? So every night the aircraft come in for partial A's or partial C's, phase checks. And you want to be able to know, is this a post-SB tail or a pre-SB tail? And if it is, then you want to show to the mechanic dynamically only the post or pre-SB task on their device. And you can only do that if you can play the SB compliance information that has to be fed from the MRO system to the CMS system, which in turn will resolve the effectivity statements and show the appropriate task to the mechanic.
Yeah, and without intelligent data set, it's simply not possible to do that. If you're taking paper and it's being scanned
or
to
PDF
and
or PDF.
I mean, paper that's being scanned to PDF or generating PDFs out of non-intelligent data. It's just simply not possible to have the sophisticated systems that we need in the future. And the only reason I was bringing that up is this manager at Tech Pubs told me that was his biggest problem, is not being able to stay on top of the as flying configuration of the airplane. And until we have intelligent data, which we can integrate with our MRO systems and push it out where we can get feedback from the field where they're doing the work on the task cards and update that and send it back to the MRO systems, we're simply never going to have that real-time information. It's being updated over time, but they were months behind in getting it updated.
And let's not forget mobility platforms. It's not convenient to demonstrate over a web browser right now, but PDF is such an inefficient structure to send down to a mobility device. And in particular, if you're talking about incremental revisions being pumped down to the device and the communication networks and the load and the volume and so on. So in itself, it is just not the quote digital structure with which you should be planning your mobility future. That's for sure.
Right.
But I also like to, there's something I like to emphasize, especially if you, during larger maintenance, the documentation set provided to the MRO department or the MRO company might be representing the as-is combination of the situation of the aircraft when it goes into maintenance. It will have all the instructions based upon how the aircraft is entering the maintenance facility. If during the performance of the maintenance, certain modifications are performed, that particular certain instructions might have to be changed, because now all of a sudden you got a post SB or a post mod aircraft. So in order to make sure that your engineers, after the modification has been incorporated, use the right instructions, that information has to be fed back and make sure that the mechanics later on will use the correct instructions. So you might have to ditch half of your maintenance instructions because now all of a sudden a particular modification was incorporated.
Got it. Well, gentlemen, the conversations we've had today around content management systems are really a critical component of a advanced system or an IT portfolio that has the ability to have highly customized information, which is efficient and easy to update and to deliver out to the end users, and to be able to integrate back into the MRO system. Without having those kind of capabilities, or you won't have those kind of capabilities unless you have intelligent sources of data that you're working from. And so I can see the importance of having, content management. Guys, I know that there's so much that we could talk about in this area, and this was really just a glimpse into content management and how you're managing it today. I see you're providing some very advanced capability to some, very visible customers today out there. And I really appreciate you showing that to us. I'd like to kind of move to the next step here. Baron, before I do that, did you have anything else that you wanted to feature before we move on?
No, I think we
okay, great.
We should be good to
very good
to discuss some other topics.
I'm going to go back and share my screen real quick, and I want to just put up two last slides, just talking about how you can get in touch with Aerosoft. And just let me start with this: is that an important question? We started out by saying, what's your digital vision? I started out by saying that, everybody's on a different journey. Well, let me rephrase that. Everybody's on the same journey of achieving digital transformation, but everybody starts or is in a different place on that road. And so you may find yourself at the beginning of a road, you may find yourself in the middle or toward the end, performing more advanced features and functions, but we're all headed down that journey. Now, one of the things that Aerosoft wants to offer to you is that, you may want to leverage the knowledge of the people that you've seen on this panel here today in order to be able to shorten that process or to make it easier, to go to your next step. You're asking yourself, where should I start? I have an existing IT portfolio. What's the important things, that I should focus on? And we're offering that if you would like to reach out to us, we're happy to have a conversation with you about your current environment and about your IT portfolio and how it is that you can develop your own vision and address your business problems, and how can you start further down this path to be able to achieve the digital transformation that's necessary in your business specifically. Everybody is different. There isn't a single person watching this broadcast today which has the same IT environment or the same business problem. We're all generally headed in the same direction, but we all have different pieces, parts, and components, depending upon what kind of systems you have, or what kind of aircraft you have, or what kind of people or experience you have. And so the offer we have today is that if you would like to reach out to us, we would like to have a conversation with you about your IT environment. And so Thanos, Baron, and myself here today, if you'd like to reach out to us, you can send us an email at info@aerosoftsys.com, or you can go to my LinkedIn page at linkedin.com in Mark S. Schultz, and you can send me a LinkedIn message. And I would really like to have a conversation with you about what you're doing and what's important in your environment. And what are your goals and objectives with digital transformation? Listen, there's no commitments that need to be made. We just like to make connections and engage with people in conversations about digital transformation and see if we can help people. If you're interested in the subject of content management or MRO systems or some of the things that you've seen today, we can further that conversation. But the beginning point is we would really like to share information with people in the industry and have conversations about how we can help each other to be successful in our digital transformation journeys. Baron and Thanos, you have some really great background and great experience. It's really been a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed talking to you guys. Thanks for being on this broadcast and this webinar today. It was really good.
You're welcome,
thank you
Mark.
for having us. Yeah.
Thanos, I want to ask you one last question. Thanos, you've seen a lot of things over the years. What is the most exciting to you today about what's happening in the industry? What makes it more possible to do what we're doing today than ever before?
I think even though this last year has been very hard in the industry per se, it's also given certain sectors time to reorganize, re-strategize, and they're coming out with renewed effort towards optimizing their entire operations. And in the process, they are identifying that indeed digital content management is one of the areas they need to focus on. So I think there is a lot of opportunity out there.
That's exciting. So really, there's been a lot of advancement in digital, and the acceptance of digital is so much more in the last year than it's ever been before. Baron, are you seeing people being more interested in engaging and doing digital over the last year?
Yes, there is not only from existing customers, but also from people out there. There's more interest, and what I've experienced now is that the more you get involved with, at least with our customers, and the more they learn about the subject of digital data and handling and using it, the more ideas come up of what can be done with that particular piece of information. It started with a very basic concept of where they want to go to, but once they open the door, they can see a variety of opportunities that are basically lying behind the corner to engage in. Yeah. But you have to make that first step. You have to engage in digital data before you can get there, basically. But it's a whole eye opener.
Absolutely.
Technology.
And the process you identified is very important, Mark. Several major players in the airline world have gone and made some very quick decisions a few years ago. Let's buy this piece of hardware device, and now let's horseshoe into it PDF data and try to have mobility going. And it just doesn't work. You can buy 2,000 devices that are too small in screen and too little in memory, and you try to put in, terabytes or certainly gigabytes of PDF content, and it just will never work. So the analysis up front, the understanding of the problem, and then ultimately proposing hardware and software infrastructures is what it's all about. It's easy to say cloud and mobility, but the devil is in the details.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Understanding that digital vision and where you are going and what is your business need, what's going to give you the highest return on investment, applying proper technology and execution and implementation of that, is really the key to what you just said. That's the bottom line. Listen, everybody, it's been a great conversation today. I want to thank the two of you for joining me in this conversation. Reach out to us. Let's continue this conversation. Leverage the knowledge of people around you, like the guys that you see on this panel here today. And we would love to continue talking to you about digital transformation in the aviation aerospace industry. Thanks, guys. Hey, fair winds and following seas to everybody out there. Have a great day. And thank you for joining on this webinar and this broadcast today. Bye, guys.
Bye. Yes, bye-bye.
Oh, looks like I go blurry now.
You did go blurry.
Yep. All right, everybody, have a great day.